Hello, it's Kendra, and it's Thursday, which means it's time for another chapter of my Yarntail shawl. My Yarntail shawl is a progressive project I am working on to kind of catalog all of the books I'm reading for a period of time by turning it into a shawl. Each book becomes a chapter. Each chapter has some memorable things about the book in it and will be meaningful for me in the future to look back and remember what I've read. So just to remind you all where we're at so far, and I'm intentionally not weaving in the ends quite yet, but I might after this next round, we'll see. So we have chapter 1, which was Exit West, chapter 2, which was Matched, and now we're on to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is going to be the book Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. What made me want to read this book? Well, I've stumbled upon booktube recently, and so I've been watching a number of videos by different people, and some of them appeal to me, many of them do not. But you know when you stumble across a YouTube channel and all of a sudden you're like, I want all the things from you, I love your voice, like there's just something about somebody's mannerisms and way of speaking and cadence, and you're like, Books and Lala. That's my new, channel obsession, Books and Lala. And the woman who runs the channel, her name is, well, she goes by Lala on the interwebs, and she, is pretty obsessed with this book, Stargirl. She talks about it a lot because I've been watching a lot of back catalogs. I've seen a number of videos over time of hers, and it's always Stargirl, Stargirl, Stargirl. It's my favorite book. So it was her favorite book from, growing up, and I didn't know anything about it, but I'm like, okay. A lot of the books she likes are not of genres I enjoy. She enjoys a lot more, contemporary romance that I'm not always so into, and she also likes thrillers, which I'm also not into, but this is a children's book, so I figured the thriller aspect was very, very low. And so I looked online to see, what is this? And so it was by Jerry Spinelli. I'm like, I know that name. Why do I know the name? And I realized it is the author of Maniac Magee. Now, Maniac Magee is a book that my 4th grade teacher read to us. You know when you come in from lunch and your teacher would read, you'd all put your heads on the desk and cool off from recess, and it was a nice time in the day. Yes, well, one of the books that my teacher read in 4th grade was Maniac Magee. I don't remember much about it, except I remember liking it. And, it's a book that keeps coming into my head, and I've been thinking recently, well, soon I need to read Maniac Magee with my daughter. She'd probably enjoy doing that for, a book report or something, and it just keeps, coming up. And so I was like, I should read Stargirl. Now, by read, I listened to it via audiobook because it was available through my free audiobook service through the Kansas State Library, and the copy I listened to was an unabridged production read by John Ritter. Now, I had a hard time deciding how I felt about John Ritter reading it. Audiobook narrators can make or break a book, right? So I've listened to a number of books that I couldn't even finish because the narrators just drove me nuts. Maybe in paper, I would like the story, I'd like the book, but couldn't stand the narrator. This was not one of those. I actually thought John Ritter was very well suited. But, the voice kept standing out to me that it was his, kind of, and that was kind of weird. Especially because he's older. Now, at the end of the book, I realized, this isn't really a spoiler, but I realized that the end of the book is a bit of, a looking back, a reminiscence, so it's kind of from an adult perspective. And then it bothered me a little less that he was the reader, but his voice didn't quite, capture what I was thinking for the age of the kids. So, to give you an overview, Stargirl is a story about a boy named Leo. It begins when he is moving to Arizona. When he moves, his uncle gives him a porcupine tie. And so then Leo decides he's going to collect porcupine neckties. And his mother writes this in a newspaper, little those little things at the classified sections, Happy birthday, Leo! Leo does this, this, and this, and he collects porcupine neckties. So she does this, and then a little while later, a box shows up on their porch with a porcupine necktie. He doesn't know where it came from, but it makes him insanely happy. Then, a little while later, a girl arrives at his high school whose name is Stargirl. She stood out to me in part because she has been homeschooled up till this point. By now, I think they're somewhere between like 14, 16-ish years old. She had been homeschooled. She knew an elderly man in the area who was a teacher, who Leo interacted with and like highly respected. Leo and this man have discussions a few times about Stargirl because they both understand her special and unique qualities. And the main unique quality of Stargirl is that she is unlike anybody else. Not for the sake of being unlike anybody else, but because she does not care to be like anybody else. Which, as you know, is not common in high school, and it's not common in books about high schoolers. It's usually all about fitting in. And while this book is about fitting in, because that comes up a lot as Leo and Stargirl develop a relationship, it is more about standing out. Or not even so much standing out like with a purpose, but just not caring if who and how you want to act and be and dress and do all the things, if that makes you stand out. So I did enjoy the book. It's interesting, doing this shawl has changed the way I read. I don't know if you had this experience with assignments growing up where, like, if you knew the assignment in advance, like, your assignment is going to be to act out a scene from this book with a group of your classmates. You'd be like, okay, so the whole time you're reading, you're like, where's a scene with 4 people? There's 4 people. Could we act? No, don't want to make costumes for that. Ooh, this scene. We'll do this, like, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? So you're kind of looking for the assignment. Well, now I'm reading books, and the whole time I'm thinking, like, what yarn does this person represent? Or what stitch pattern could I use? Or, like, trying to find what's important in the book, not from the aspect of, like, studying it to figure out what the themes are, the metaphor, trying to answer all of those, like, academic kind of questions, but more like, what's important about this to me? Or what's going to make me smile about this book in 2 years? Because those are kind of the things I'd like to have in the shawl. Things that make me actually think, remember, or go back to things I'd like to remember out of the book. So, as I'm on to the 3rd time I've done this, I'm already starting to change the way that I'm reading and thinking while I'm reading and thinking about the shawl while the reading is occurring. It's very strange. But from the very beginning of the book, I knew that I wanted to use this yarn. This yarn really has no reason why it's like, ooh, this is, you know, exactly the story. But this book felt like this Red Heart with Love in this bluish turquoise colorway. It is something I had in a sample shawl that I was making. I was unhappy with, so I frogged it, and it looks like this. So, this is what I'm going to use, because this is the yarn. I just know this is the yarn, because I was thinking about this yarn the whole time. And from the very beginning of the book, I knew what I wanted to do for my pattern. I read the book and I kept thinking, is there something else I can do? You know, like, be more creative, Kendra, don't go with your gut. But when I read that Leo had a porcupine necktie, I knew that I had recently been going through my book, and what I needed were posies, because they remind me of little porcupines. So that is what I am going to do. I've actually already sketched it out just to make sure that the math would work. This is my crazy person sketch. This shows the porcupine necktie. And I had thought of doing something with like Stargirl's desk, because she has this unique way of, in every class of hers, she spreads out like a little curtain around the front of her desk, and she puts a little vase with a flower in it that's fresh at the beginning of the week, and then throughout the week it gets more and more wilty. And I thought about doing something with a flower in it, or something somehow kind of curtained, and I was like, no, what you really want to do is the porcupine. Just do the porcupine in the blue, because it's what you want to do. Stop trying to, you know, be all crazy and thinking of other things. But anyways, I recognize that to most people this is probably unintelligible, but basically I drew out my 49 stitches, and then I figured out the posy stitch is worked over double crochets, and it's basically worked above your standard, like there's work underneath, and then the posy pops out over the top. So I just went through to make sure that my mathing would work and figure out how many posies I'm going to get. There's going to be 4 posies across the shawl. So I'm going to go and work that part up, and then I'll come back and show you the shawl. So I'll see you in a little bit. So time has passed. Dinner has been consumed, And the newest chapter of my Yarntail shawl has been added. So this is what it looks like from the back. This is how Micah High School was before Stargirl came to town. And then, boom, Stargirl. Or porcupine necktie, or something else fun that just stands out, because this will stand out from the rest of my shawl, which I'm really enjoying. I ended up not doing quite as many rows as double crochet as I had expected. I did the row that leads into the posy stitch, then the posy stitches worked over a row of double crochet, then this row that works you back out of the posy stitch, and then just the final one to cap it off. So it was just 4 rows of double crochet are now added to the shawl. And for anybody that's interested, my shawl is currently about 8 inches long and about 16 inches wide, and we're working with 49 stitches across. So that is this week's edition, and I really like that the back is kind of like mundane and humdrum and boring, and then boom, Stargirl. She stands out. So just for those of you that were interested, I did enjoy the book Stargirl, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who would be interested. I listened to it on the train coming up from San Luis Obispo to Sacramento. It was somewhere between 4 and 5 hours long on audiobook at the regular length. So it is a quick and easy listen and or read. It was a nice afternoon of crochet while listening to the story all kind of in a row. A lot of times I tend to break up my audiobook listening, but this I just did one big go, and it was fun. Kind of like watching a movie, but better, because movies are meh. So anyways, I just want to recommend that to you, and if you have any recommendations for me, please leave them in the comments below, because I'm always looking for new things to read. Just note, I do not like mysteries, and I do not like thrillers, but I like most things that are realistic, and I also enjoy a good fantasy book, so those are kind of my parameters. I hope that I will see you all next Thursday when I will be doing my next book. I'll see you then. Bye!